It's
Perfect.
there is an icon somewhere that says comments, show or hide. If you want to watch the comments from all the different platforms, if you put your cursor on there, it should say it somewhere. It might be uh, an icon. I don't know. It's up to you.
Okay, I think I got it. I
Okay.
saw it.
What does it look like? Because only one person is. Somebody told me they saw it yesterday and they turned it on.
So it's on your video and it's like in the top right
Uh,
corner, a
okay.
little message
Okay. I got you. Okay. Perfect.
window. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Let me tag you on this. And that way that allow people to come in. There's 5 people in. Our notifications are getting suppressed a little bit, so it takes about 2 minutes. Okay, here we are. Okay, and I should have asked you already. Tijana, Atma, Sophia, right? Is that right?
Tiana.
Tiana,
Tiana.
Tiana,
Yeah.
Tiana, Atma,
Yeah.
Sophia. Okay, I got to get my
Yes.
Spanish linguistics. That'll help me with the pronunciation.
It's Serbian. My given name is
Serbian.
Serbian. Yeah.
Oh wow, wow. Wow. Are you do you live there now?
I don't. I'm in Toronto right now.
Toronto. Okay, cool. Eastern time zone. Hot
Yes.
area too. That's a hot area.
Oh, is it?
Well, my friend who transitioned in October, Franco De Nicola, my brother,
Oh, right.
he's
He
from
was from here.
Toronto, and I just remember coming into these communities, which was probably the summer of 2013. Yeah, I got a computer. I started, expanding Soulogy, which I had done from the streets with a flip phone, and I started to meet people. And a lot of people that I was running into were from Toronto. And being a typical American, I didn't know Vancouver from Toronto and Saskatchewan or whatever it's called. But I started to understand its proximity to what I did understand because I'd spent some time in New York City during my time, and I understood how the density kind of works both ways. Like you have a density that seems to be like a human thickness with all these people, but at the same time, spending 4 months like in New York City, riding the subway every day, and living on nothing, you really were able to having been somebody that really interacted a lot with nature up to that point, I was really able to make some leaps and see the value of such a diversity, almost like I've been to Sedona, and you have like this cosmic, galactic, angelic, elemental, superhighway, off universe thing. But to me, it's like the human equivalent in New York or in a Toronto, in a big city like that, particularly in the Eastern North American continent, you know. So yeah, truly, truly eye opening. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. I'm looking forward to this. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here and to meet you. It's very nice to meet you. I've come in contact with your channel and with Soulology, I think in 2019. So it's
Oh
been a few
wow,
years.
cool,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. That's
Yeah.
good to
Somebody
hear.
told me about you in Goa, actually, in India. They're like,
Oh,
oh, do you know Todd Medina? And I was like, no, who is that?
hmm,
And then they shared your channel with me. So
wow.
yeah, that was really cool.
Well, uh, this show, if you've watched it, it's not a typical Q&A. So you're welcome. It's a conversation. It's a conscious conversation between two people with a bunch of people watching. So you're welcome to ask questions. I mean, it's just a conversation. Obviously, the we're going to accentuate you, and in particular some of the things that you're involved with, such as what we're about to speak about, as well as, I guess, sacred sexuality, merging, perioscamos, and that type of thing. And I know Morgan's really excited to hear what you have to say too. But when we first got on, before we turned on the camera, I was apologizing for having to cancel 2 weeks ago, and I said because I don't remember specifics. I just remember the energy. And I said, because I was, like flat on my back. And you said, now this would be 2 weeks ago. You said, well, that week that the masculine was going through a lot. And then you said last week that the feminine was going through a lot. And I'm just paraphrasing what I picked up from you. But I would love for you to elaborate, because we're all about the human journey and specific to real-time intel, which in this transition we call ascension is probably 2 weeks back up to the present, right? And maybe a week out in front of us. So if you could give us, what you picked up on 2 weeks ago, that was the masculine going down into the depths, and then I guess last week the feminine going into the depths. What you could share with us, I really would be grateful.
Yeah, so I think that 2 weeks ago, that period for the divine masculine was really challenging. And you mentioned physically, and I only know because of everything that my twin is going through. So I just know from his experience, it was a very physically demanding, purging time. And then this has been such a miraculous time, and there's so much going on. And today's like the first day of the new earth, it feels like for me. And it's so magnificent that we're having this conversation now. But basically, after the masculine has done his purge, I experienced the return of the Christ on 4-4, on the 4-4 portal. The Christ returned. It was like the masculine rod came back fully online. The 3 parts of the rod aligned for the last rod to come online, which is the Christ. And that was really, really magnificent. So what happened after that was the entire clearing of the remaining distortions of the feminine. So that led us all the way up until yesterday. And I was thinking about it today in the transmission that came through, which was so amazing. I experienced for the first time the hierogamical alignment between the physical twins on April 3rd. And then the next day was the return of the Christ. And then it was like 7 days of creation of her clearing all of her distortions to come back into her original essence.
Okay.
And then we're like on the 8th day now, and it just feels like a rebirth, a newness, something so beautiful. So
Yeah.
that's the story that is coming through for me. And I just find it so special and so beautiful. And I have this like whole Genesis theme going on in my life. And so it's like, oh my goodness, we just finished like the second Genesis right now. And we're here.
Yeah.
And it feels amazing.
Well, the way you explained it, it sounds nice and smooth.
I know.
But I think it was, but I can resonate with what you're saying. I'm trying to put the dates together, but you're giving me the 4-4, because I remember very specifically that the first was a Friday. I remember that because on the first, you talk about, and again, for me, when I capture, let's say, the present now, as time is doing all these weird things, the present for me is like, a few days back and maybe a few days forward somehow, and it's all like happening at the same time kind of thing. But I remember on the first, because I had a really wild day, like I had this energy come into me. I was telling Morgan that it came into my solar heart area, and I had not felt this energy in 10 years. And that would have been like 11 years. When I woke up, like a lot of people, when we first woke up, especially if it was around 2012, our connectivity was just like off the charts. Like we were being shown things at a very extreme and massive scale. And you hear a lot of people go, wow, I wonder where that went, or it doesn't come as often. So I recognized it, and I ended up having an experience that night. It was an all-day experience about let things go. This is the new reality. Felt very much like the words you're speaking, like we're in the new world now, like really in the new world. And it was showing me, and I ended up experiencing like a 90-minute episode at a restaurant by myself, just having some, and it was 9 minutes from the time that it started to the time, and I get up to leave, and it's only 9 minutes had passed, which I was absolutely 100% verifiable. So there was something that happened to me. I didn't really associate it so much with the masculine, but I'm not as clued in as like you and Morgan, with that type of thing. Uh, and so the rest of it kind of follows suit and feels right as well. Um, People have talked about this month, as every month has gotten bigger and the information and the code comes in faster. They talk about how this month starts with a new moon, how it ends with a new moon, solar eclipse. Uh, I think today Neptune and Jupiter, what do they call it? Being close together, conjunction. Um, I don't understand all that stuff. I just understand energy. But it feels like I was reading the description of those two planets. I shared a post in the Soulogy. I don't remember the words, but it just sounds like we're coming home. And this being the first, say, 30 days of that, what do you feel? What are you feeling into when you do? How is this going to go? Are we still going to have these fluctuations and these challenges to the human part of us, or is it going to be a bit smoother? Do you see any? Can you detect that in any way?
I hope that it's going to be smoother. I mean, it's so hard to tell because we're always going to have our human part with us, maybe not, but it feels like everything is cleared and open and we're going and everything is speeding up and we're not held back anymore. That's what
Mm.
it feels like to me. It's like all of the doors are open and it's just time to go. It's like
Yeah.
time to go and it's time for action and it's all happening really, really fast and there's a lot of movement that's happening. So that's what it feels like for me. I hope that the human challenges are going to be easeful, but I'm not sure if I can say that they're going to be finished.
Yeah, that was the fear in me. So you said something too in your overview. You're speaking of the third. You're speaking of the fourth. You're speaking of a uh, some type of initial hierogamic physical scenario. But you also spoke in terms of the feminine, and I'm just going to paraphrase my own understanding, how the feminine has come full circle. Like by her coming full circle, you being her, uh, being the what would I want to say, the replication of the Holy Mother's womb, the holy darkness, the the core of creation. You're the one. It can't be done by him. She has to open up for it to occur. It feels like that's what you're saying. So can you just let me know what happened? What happened to you? What is physical hierogamic experience? What happened to you? What does it mean to you? If you might could elaborate on that.
So I love how you phrase that and how you spoke about that. It's so beautiful and it's so powerful. And it's like he is the one that is preparing us to be her in my experience. In my experience, Christ is the only one who can prepare us. And when I say Christ, it is the fullness and the unification of all aspects of the divine masculine. It is the divine masculine architecture. And it became so clear to me what it means, like what the divine masculine architecture is, what the rod is, what the cross is. And it's so magnificent that this all happened on the 4-4 because the 4 is the cross, the 4 is the 4 rods of the divine masculine, and his architecture is what holds all of her and can behold all of her. So I think that the divine masculine has a really, really big role in shaping us and preparing us to be the fullness of her, which is all of creation. Like he's the only one who can hold all of creation. But going back to your hierogamical question, so I feel that the Heroes Gamos journey has been a very personal journey for the last 2 years, especially for me. In my own journey, Heroes Gamos has been an individual internal journey between me and God and the cosmic divine masculine that has been initiating me this entire time into
Right.
deeper embodiments of the divine feminine, of her, of Sophia.
Yes. I'm getting jacked up over here. Okay. So we're definitely in the right spot. Okay, so I'm going to kick it back. What I think what I'm going to just try to encapsulate what you're saying from his perspective. It feels like to me, why I don't know why I'm about to start crying, but it feels like to me, and I can only speak from my personal experience and what I share with Morgan and what I observe because it's all connected, that we go through these cycles of new creations and it's the same format. It's these polarities that go like this, and then they go for an instant, they hit, and a new toroidal field occurs, right? Like, so having said that as a backdrop, recognizing the limitlessness of what she is, getting past the human barriers in programming and conditioning, throwing right and wrong out of it because that's all human, and just
Right.
seeing and surrendering to this limitless expanse I call the holy darkness, which is the most beautiful, the abyss. That's the place where you're in that space and you go, and and the mother is there and says, now that you're here and you're not shaking in your boots, you made it, let's create something else. And it's pure love. So from the masculine perspective, it feels like, for me anyway, that I've been able to, I guess for lack of a better way to say it, accept her, see her, no matter what, see her essence and her sacredness, no matter what, and that the human part of me is no longer standing in the way. And it's crazy. But that's kind of, I feel into your words, and then I feel into my experience, and that's where I see, you know, the commonality, even though the perspectives are different and the words are different. Is there anything you could add to that or affirm or take away? Because I'm totally open.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And it's so emotional because it's like who we are, and we're coming back to this place, and we're coming back to the harmony that hasn't been there for a really, really long time, because exactly as you said, it's like our human got in the way, the programming got in the way, the aspects of us that were conditioned were so much in the way of love, of the divine love that exists between him and her. So thank you so much for sharing that from your perspective, because I never really know the masculine perspective. I just know my own perspective, and that what my partner shares with me, but he's not very, very much talkative about these kind of deeper experiences of what the masculine goes through. He just kind of watches, and I feel like is has been awaiting my return and the
Yeah.
full circle of coming back to her and being her.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. You know, I just so it like when you were describing it at the beginning and talking about his role, like it was almost like he needed to do something. like he needed to take a certain action to ignite, right? And I think for me that the masculine role in this realm has been one of, we got to go do this. We got to go do this. Take action. But for me, in listening to you, and as we synthesize, let's just say the non-physical and the physical, it's a different language, and it is a language of equilibrium that we can tap into, which is the balance, the masculine and feminine. But for me, the action was to almost like, and not create a container because she's uncontainable, but to just step back and literally be nothing, so that she could fully expand without anything, without judgment, without control, without anything, and just allow it. Because in retrospect, looking at my own life and looking at what I've observed, it's very obvious for all of us that she's been suppressed. We know this. But there is a wild, intriguing, imaginative, endless, mercurial, just colossal, ancient, Akashic part of her that even showed up in the human being that was where the real gold is, right? It's almost like what the human might say is the darkest parts of her, right? That's where your lover is. Because that's the part of her that she doesn't even know, right? Like, so to me, just summing up what you're saying, it was like, you don't
That's
take it.
amazing that you're saying
Yeah.
this, because I feel like that's the last piece of it. And I just experienced this last piece like literally yesterday, which was really, really wild. And I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but this is what I'm hearing from you. It's like he is inside of her darkest part. And I came home to him and to myself through through my darkest part, which I've always projected onto him. I
Wow,
don't know
that's
if that.
no. I'm following you because it makes okay because what you said first, right? Where it's like when I do what I described, and then she's unencumbered, unbridled, right? And she goes into those crevices, right? That because of the experience and the conditioning, she's not even sure, right? Like that's the great void, right? But not only does she create the space, so to speak, but in that space, he finds himself, the parts of him that were restricted because when you get right down to it, she leads the way. I mean,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Because they say that source has no gender, but only a mother can give birth. So I know it's a chicken and the egg thing, but my money's on God's a woman. You know what I mean? So I love what you said about her because how could she go there without with any restraint, right? Like how could she go there? So to be allowed to go there, love is free. Then she finds the new territory, the new fertility, and in that whatever that is, he actually finds the parts of him he didn't know, and there we go. Two energies of polarity that step into a field that neither one of them have been in, create what a new creation, and yeah, I loved it that I was able to stay up with you on that because that was pretty deep.
Yeah, I feel like it was the final part. And I've been corrected by a few people because I use that word too. I use the word that she leads, like she leads and he follows, because I feel that he, through his service to her, is always reflecting back to her that which is inside of her own self. So this is where the twin flame journey, or whatever journey you want to call it, between him and her is really, really challenging. It's like he's reflecting back to her all that is unconscious within her, and she's holding all of creation and the Akashic records of humanity. And she has to go on this deep journey of clearing all of that. And until she can clear that and come back to her genesis, come back to her original consciousness, he can't express who he really is.
Right.
Because he's always having to reflect back to her what is within her. So I've always used that term as well. It's like she's the one leading, but I've been corrected, saying that she guides, or like she's the one setting the tone, which does in some way feel more appropriate in the description of it. But I absolutely agree. It's like the feminine does set and go first.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think where the people that you're referring to, or whatever, it's understandable because we're all coming out of a human condition. I can understand having to use the verbiage that you're talking about. And I think where we get hung up is simply from the human condition, which one, that we're talking about every woman over here and every man over here, and they represent feminine only and masculine only, and that's not how it works. But
Right.
the vast majority obviously are going to be in a feminine, they're going to be a feminine incarnate. Like they're going to be incarnated in a female body. It doesn't always work that way. Now, the other thing is, and I used to say this back in the corporate world, I was pretty good at, and it was a feminine quality. So I was pretty good at, if something needed to be put together and there were different, factions involved, and we needed to have, I guess you would say, like a peacekeeper or a person that could bring consensus, which means that, in this patriarchal, you're going to have to, especially in a corporate patriarchal, people are going to have to give stuff up. And I used to always walk into the negotiations and I would say, who's going to drop their pants first? Right? So, in other words, somebody has to do it. But what I felt, what I would try to tell people is, it's not easy to do that. So whoever is going to show their privates, show their whatever that is behind the wall or the mask, is going to need the support to do it. Because we're talking about entering a space of beyond authenticity, beyond vulnerability, into pure transparency. And when, like many of us have had these experiences, both alone and with our partner, when you enter that space, you don't see anything. It's just like pitch dark, right? And that's the moment, right? That's the moment where the spark comes from. So I just want to, I'm not saying I'm siding with you, because I don't want to put any separation between those that have come and question you on this. But I'm 100% with you and those like you, that the reality is, in this time and space, she goes first. But she can't go first unless she's unrestricted and accepted and loved in those places that have not been tread, right? Because that's the fertile ground of the new creation. So,
And that's where God comes in.
Exactly. Yeah. Because what is that? We all know what we know, but what is that word? God, goddess, source. What is that? Well, it's what we don't know, right?
It's
To
the
me,
essence that lives deep within us.
right? Yeah, that is looking to expand where it's been. Like, why do the same thing over and over? So this is that's
Because we
like
have to course correct. We have
exactly.
to
I
not
mean,
go through
yeah,
the fall again, and we have to correct everything that has happened through the
yeah,
fall.
yeah,
That's why we got to do it again,
yeah. And you could look at it
right?
like at a soul signature level. Like you're not going to have the same soul signature produced every time a new birth occurs. You're going to have, you know, like I'll just use this one because it's dear to my heart, right? You're going to have like Todd Morgan version one.
Oh,
You know, so I had a
right.
lucid dream, and we had this 17-story house with 72 rooms, and there was all our kids in there. I like to kid her about it because, but the truth is, any of those third energies are not the same, right? Because so there has to be an element that has been added that's never been added before, which I think is what you're describing is that space where God is, right?
Right.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about sacred sex. This is, but I mean, let me just ask you, like, um, so sacred, the words, sacred sexuality. Of course, we've been tainted, and sexuality has been distorted. Obviously, what has been our biggest weakness is actually our greatest strength. But we're not talking about sex here. We're talking about a frequency, a collaboration, creation. It's really, and I just love to hear your words, no right or wrong answer. It's really something that is available, and this is kind of a question. This is a question. Is it something that's available at all times that is in reality our natural nature?
Well, it is just the communion with God. It
Hmm.
is co creation. It is a co creation and your inner communion on a moment to moment basis, and you receiving God and allowing God to live and breathe and create through you
Yes.
is a co creation. And I don't know if that relates to sacred sexuality, but I think what I'm hearing from you when you say sacred sexuality is like the meeting of the two energies that creates a third energy.
Yes. That's what. Yes.
So for me, that is co-creation in every moment, and that still has yet to very much unfold because, like I said, I have been on my own individual journey of Heroes Gamos, where everything has been happening inside of me. And for the last 2 years, like I haven't seen my twin for 2 years. We have a daughter who's 18 months old that
Wow.
he has not yet met because I left India like right before the pandemic. I came back to Toronto under some intense divine intervention, and I ended up staying the entire time, and he's still in India. So we have yet to come back together after my entire journey with Heroes Gamos, with Holy Spirit, with God, in my purification, with my journey with Christ. So all of this has happened in the last 2 years while we have been separate. And that's what I experienced for the first time in this lifetime is the hero gamical template coming online between us, um, and God, right? It's like a triangle. It's like we're on the bottom and God is on the top, and we're in communion with God and in communion with one another, and God
Right.
is sort of like above and between us.
Right.
So I felt that come online for the first time, and I we met each other in this lifetime in 2015, so it's been 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and so I have yet to experience this new chapter of coming back together and having a brand new experience in communion between um, the two of us, and then also with our daughter as well.
Yes. Wow. That's weird. I always have to mention things because I know that we don't always understand it. But A, we met in 2015. Uh, B, I think it's obvious to all of us that for 2 years, kind of coinciding with COVID and all of its sub programs, it's been it's been a period of superficially restriction and constriction and oppression and so on. But individually and etherically, there's been a lot of self-introspection. There's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of solitude and isolation. So, we're kind of, I think we can relate to the physical separation that you're speaking of. Blessings or burdens, burdens or blessings, right? But in light of, in regard to that, and everything else that you're pulling down, sacred wisdom, how do you see this energetic transition or shift affecting what we might have called at one time traditional relationships or the couple, or is what you're saying is you don't know yet because you haven't come back together yet?
Okay, so that's a very, very good question, because I just had a shift in that yesterday, or no, maybe it was this morning. It was this morning that I felt for the first time in my life, like, oh my goodness, I want to give my life to him. I want to give my womb to him. I want to give my heart to him. And that was so novel and something that I've never experienced before. And something that actually, I think, 4 days ago terrified me, because I can see that this was like the next step. I can see that where we're going, I needed to surrender and follow his lead, because his vision, he can see and he knows. Like the last 2 years, I've tried to follow my own desires. I've tried to bring him over to Canada like 3 times. We've tried so many different things, but it was all coming from me and none of it worked. But now hearing like his vision, even just last Saturday, terrified me, because it was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to surrender to this, and I'm going to have to follow this. I even used the word submit. And that brought on a lot of fear for me. That was very, very scary for my human, like to submit to him. And I made the analogy, like it's been so easy to give my life to God, to allow God to steer the wheel, to give my will to God. But then it's like, am I going to have to give my life and my will to him, knowing that it's all dependent on my energy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that is very coherent, because this is all sort of what's coming in very recently. And this is what I'm seeing. It's like he's in the driver's seat, and submitting to that, and submitting to the divine in him, through him, knowing that I play a big role in that.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't worked the other way around, even though I tried very, very hard to make it work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It sounds like say there's like I think of a dance, right? And if you have a dance, you have a certain sequence of steps, and so it's like, that saying, we'll be fine as long as we get the human out of the way, right? So it's like, stop thinking and just, it's because it's all innate, right? So it's almost like, and it works both ways. Like it could be her, it could be him, trying to intercede or interfere from our human conditioning, and therefore missing the pattern of the rhythm, right? And then the other thing that jumps out is the inverse. Because I look at things, and again, I realize that even though on the linear scale, even if it's just a few days, it's really not. One goes first and one goes second. It's really not. It's like a simultaneous cosmic orgasmic reaction, right? That keeps happening each time that you or he submit surrender. But as we were talking about first, I still feel that, like, in that non-quantifiable from a human perspective space of this block of time, but in order to explain it, he had to allow her to go find the endless bounds or new bounds of her unknown, uncharted territory, because she is that. And so that
She
was his.
had to find her.
Yes. Yes.
It's like my entire journey from day one has all led me to find her.
Yes.
The divine feminine, to find goddess. It's like all of my devotion, everything I've ever done, my entire life spiritually has led me to her. It was like she is the everything, the only thing. Yeah. And I feel like this whole journey has been just to come home to her within me, and he was providing the space for that. And actually, from my personal experience, it was divine. It was the divine masculine that led me to her through his endless initiations, like the cosmic divine masculine. Yeah. First, it was the Holy Father, and then the solar masculine, and then the dark high masculine. I have all of these different terms for the different archetypes and the different parts of the journey, but they all played such a pivotal role in me coming home to her and me meeting her, and actually me being able, or this mind body being a pure enough vessel for her.
Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have like 12 archetypes of each, right? Like I just picture like a circle, and what you said, I can't even like re-say it. I'm good at that. I'm good at restating stuff. But yeah, I remember during this period you were talking about, this previous 2 weeks, because I remember we had feminine energy come on. And I can't recall names. I can't recall. But I remember somebody, she was talking about this, part of this. And it was like, she must be seen. And I just, in my head, I just went, and I think I spoke it. I said, she can't be seen until she sees herself. That's how the ball starts rolling, right? And maybe the impetus, and maybe what I'm picking up from you, that the impetus, the initiative, the force, because I look at her as creation, and he is creator. So what is it that all those archetypes of the masculine, what is that force that brought them to you? Well, in reality, it's you, but I mean, it's that instinct. It's that thing. It's like when I met Morgan, and I met her messaging, and we merged, and it was organic and it was beautiful. And I got up the next morning and I'm like, I need to talk to you on the phone. She's like, I don't talk to people. But I convinced her. And as soon as I heard the voice, and this is, obviously all, non-verbal, right. That whole and I just went, that's it. I saw it all, but I don't know how to get there. But I'm not going to deter until my last dying breath. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. But that's where I'm going. And so that thing, I think, is what I'm picking up, is like what drives it. And then her discovery of herself ultimately is what creates the new universes, right? I mean,
the new earth.
Yeah. Holy Triad. I feel for your partner and for you. I mean, and to have a physical representation of the third energy is incredible. when you speak of this physical herioscamos that occurred on the 3rd of the 4th.
It was like an energetic. I felt the clicking of the energetic template come online. So it's not physical because we're like our physical bodies are still separate,
Mm-hmm.
but it was energetic. It was like in the quantum,
Yes.
the energetic template coming back online.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, I got that. And that's what I was referring to was I know I was talking to a man yesterday about and I started like crying. I was talking to a guy about moving into a house and I mentioned Morgan. I'm like, yeah, I can feel you. But um, yeah, what I was referring to was that you're not physically together.
Right.
And that physical regardless of whether it's a literally physical, it's not the point. The point is you're not physically together, and that template came online, right? Like
Yes.
I think in our physical geographical distance, some things have occurred that have been a bit different. We've had a lot of experiences, like I'm sure you and your partner have, but they've not been like, okay, let's merge right now and let's make something happen. It's been more like I go to bed, like when she first went over to Australia and she gets put in quarantine, and I'm like in my heart, and I'm like probably crying, and I'm like I love you, and I just want to, and it's the heart, and then I start having these visions, and I won't go into detail, and then she's like the next day, 16 hours ahead of me, she's like, hey, I was laying in bed and you didn't ask permission. I'm feeling you physically, and it's just like you're here. Like, and I'm like, yeah, well, this
Yeah.
is what happened to me. So it reminds me of that. It's like there's something to these geographical distances that's actually creating a greater bond of love. And I think these couples, maybe they're a small microscopic reflection of that.
Yeah, I feel you and I feel Morgan, and it's like also very emotional for me to like feel you guys, and when you speak about her I feel the love, and I do feel that. I feel him like physically with us all the time, even though he's on the other side of the world in India. But I feel that this separation has been so divinely orchestrated and very much needed, because when I reflect back on my journey, it's like I needed these 2 years to hold or to even be in the vicinity of us physically.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
It is. It's crazy. I think what it does for me is it gives me more than anything a reverence for our human aspect of our multidimensionality. Like the human is a badass. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like to get the human out of the way, and obviously the universe, coordinates a lot. Higher selves coordinates a lot of this stuff, and so you end up being separated, from a human perspective, and it's out of your hands. But it's a divine orchestration, and now listening to you and even reflecting on my own experience, you can see that something huge is going to come from even one couple doing this, because it is you are submitting, you are for all intents and purposes the transitive verb to trust and believe. It's that 10% that we never get on this experience, otherwise we wouldn't gain anything from it. It's that part of us that, I don't think surrender is the right word. It's devotion. It's beyond commitment. It's pure. It's the newest love the newest universal love, the newest potential of it. And whether it be a physical third energy baby or an etherical, it's all the same thing. And somehow or
Right.
another I don't know, it's like the nexus of the fusion of the physical and the non-physical. It just blows you away.
Yes.
I don't even have to ask you, but I think for people that um, are going through similar things or will, I think that sometimes they might look at someone like you or me or Morgan or your partner and, wow, they just got it. But it's tough. I know in 2 years you've probably had doubts and you've had ups and downs, and then to have a baby, on one hand it's something that, like for instance, I don't, but at the same time, it's what you describe has been such a an emphasis on furthering self-awareness and presence, and that submit thing and all that. But I mean, has it you had times that were trying during this time?
Oh my goodness.
uh, I guess I got a little too diplomatic there, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this entire journey from the beginning, like from the moment of meeting him, I feel like we're just completing this 7 year cycle. And then it's like brand new because what happened in the last 7 years, um, yeah, there's really no even words to describe the challenges of meeting the depths of yourself and actually taking ownership and responsibility for all of the evil that exists in the world as your own,
Yeah.
as you, and claiming that and taking responsibility for that. And in that responsibility, in that ownership, alchemizing it and dissolving it. And this has been such a big part of my journey because Todd, I went so deeply, speaking about the last 2 years specifically, and my own inner journey. It's like going so deep inside of the NAA story and like going
Yes.
inside of all of the dimensions and going inside all of the inverted matrices and retrieving my consciousness and getting rid of all of these like inorganic implants and overlays and all of these things that consume so many of us and so many of our brothers and sisters, and going very deep inside of that story and then coming out on the other side by owning that like I'm responsible for all of this.
Yeah.
Everything that I experience is me. Everything that I experience is living within me.
Right.
It's recorded in my DNA. It's inside of this physical vessel. So I have to absolutely take ownership of it and then through that process alchemize it and exalt it and integrate it.
Yes.
And that's like the path to unity consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not an easy path by any means to come to come into and integrate that unity and truly understand that everything we experience, everything that we see, that we feel is coming from us. It is
That's right.
us.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
And I'm glad you mentioned all of that. All of the narratives, realities, dimensions, and this is even more so why the human is a badass. Because at the end of the day, those things are what they are, and they all mean different things to different people because we all have different experiences and different memories and different recollections, and we're made up of different, let's just say, different experiences
Right.
prior and during. But at the end of the day, we're conscious here in the human form 99.99% of the time. And although that's probably reducing and more of the multidimensionality is coming online, obviously. But why? Because the human is an equal and on point on this mission. And so those at some level become a distraction. And to me, the only thing that makes any sense of it all, of all of that vast, ginormous, you know, Akashic, whatever you want to call it, you know, with all those different energies, polarities, distortions, is love. Everything runs through her. That's the way I see it. I came from her. She sent me a physical, or I've created a physical replication of my own feminine, however you want to put it. But that's everything, and it's not an attachment. It's a connection. It's an umbilical cord. And it's way beyond my comprehension. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's been a fascinating journey, part of my journey, like these glimpses and these moments, everything's like runs back through her. I don't know, you said something there that just reminded me of these moments, and it happened twice actually, where I literally became the Holy Mother and then had. So the first time it was like the serpent, it was the huge Naga serpent god just come through me and ascend back to her through me. And then the second time was Yahweh. So I just very much connect with what you're saying right now. It's like everything comes back to her and through her. And that's how everything is connected and unified.
Yeah.
But yeah, that just reminded me of these two very extraordinary experiences that I had of that were terrifying as well. But yeah, I very much agree with what you said.
Yeah. Well, you know, I love the fact that what I get to do, nothing scripted. You know, there's no marketing, there's no promotion. I appreciate people that want to put out what their inspiration is and what it looks like, and I encourage that too. We encourage that at Soulogy. But these discussions where every part or in our where our intention is that every part of us is present and available, but most importantly, the human is. I think I said this for a long time that to me that this is where our highest potential for code and transmission and download is through having these conversations, real time. Because what happened a month ago and 2 months ago, that's it might as well have happened 10 years ago at this point.
Right.
It's
Right.
like whatever we're doing here, you know, people talk about being present. The go-to for me is, and people talk about run everything through the heart and be, you know, think with your heart. But to me, it's this infinite, undefinable, always changing, always expanding by the measure of our efforts. Love, right? In the moment.
Yeah.
No matter what. It doesn't matter that she's in Australia or he's in India. It doesn't matter because it cannot diminish what level it's achieved, and it can always expand. It doesn't matter if
And it can always expand.
That's right. It's a choice point. Love is a choice point. Yeah. So, you know, and the crazy thing is, we start this show, and I got some bad news. And it's not bad news, it's one of those things, and this is another projection of what we've been talking about in a different form. So yesterday I went somewhere and something was presented, and the odds were minimal, and it involved a new place, a new space, and I'm talking in all terms, and it came in. It came in not what I would have preferred, but that's love. Love is you're going to be geographically distant. What are you going to do? Love is I'm walking down the street and somebody spits on me. What are you going to do?
Right.
It's that's what I was asking, and I probably didn't phrase it right. It was about the whole sacred sexuality, because that's more of a physical, energetic kind of thing. But that's what I'm talking about. Maybe I should use a different term. Maybe that's the helioscomic energy or something. I don't know how to explain it, but that's what I get. I get that in all moments, it's there for you. And I think these connections that have occurred over the last few years have something to do with that. People talk about anchoring and embodying. I think it has something to do with it. Anyway, that's just, yeah. Is there anything that you want to share before we get out of here? It's been.
Well, I just want to share my gratitude to be on your show and to converse with you and to have this conversation. It's been really wonderful, and I just feel very blessed to be here and to have met you.
Well,
so thank you.
Same here, and I know why Morgan was so excited, because as we all know, the feminine seem to have that other that other sense of smell, right? That intuition, and they pick up on things. And I think she was right on the money. So I wish you the best, and you and your partner and your child and all your endeavors. We would love to collaborate with you, or with you and him.
Yes.
As we get into this year, and I'm sure that we'll be reaching out to you if you're open to it. We would love to share code again in the future, and maybe we can get Morgan on here, and maybe get your partner on here too. That'd be
Yes.
Interesting. So,
I would love that very much.
Yeah, and thank you very much for being so open and sharing with us.
Thank you.
All right, you take care. Peace out, everybody. We got one more in a couple hours.
Okay.
All right, take care. Thank you.